Welcome to the Purposeful MD podcast. As a physician, you've sacrificed so much of your life for other people, your patients, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. What would it feel like to spend time doing what you enjoy and to live without guilt? I'm your host, Dr. Laura Sutton, a family physician, certified coach, and business owner. If you're a medical professional on a journey towards your most purposeful life, a life with more time and energy, and ultimately more joy, then this is the podcast for you. For our listeners, a content warning that there is discussion of self-harm and suicide in this episode. Welcome to the Purposeful MD podcast. I'm so happy to have on my good friend and colleague, Dr. Lindsey Van Duyn, today. Dr. Van Duyn, welcome.
Why, thank you. I'm excited to be here, Laura.
Yeah. So, Lindsay, you and I met probably 2 or 3 years ago, virtually via Zoom, and connected there. And you were working on something incredible, which you'll tell us all about today. And then we had a chance to meet in person through Peter Kim's mastermind and at PIMD Con. And I've just really always appreciated your energy. And I'm so excited for our listeners to hear about what you're working on. So tell us about you and your background and how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. So I went to med school at VCOM, which is Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine, with Virginia Tech, their DO school. And I had all anticipation of going into orthopedic surgery. And I love sports. I love coaching. I like intense things. And then I got pregnant, and that rocked my world. So as a third year, I had twins, and I decided to step aside. So then I went into family medicine, and there's a few cases that really scared me. One was when a patient said they had chest pain, because I can't just fix that. And the other, is when I have these teens in front of me that are just severely depressed. That gets heavy. And I moved back home to practice. And so, this is hometown Iowa. The teens that I was treating are friends, or, they're even my friends' children. And so it became a personal mission to help these children. I couldn't just say, I'll see you back in 6 to 8 weeks. And it was more common than I wanted it to be. And because I saw this as a problem, I just tried to find a solution. And that led me to where I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing, which is immersive medical therapy. Being trained in orthopedics, but working in family medicine, I often feel like I have to go back to the basics. And so I did a lot of literature diving and talking to my psych friends. And we kept coming across virtual reality. And I was like, why aren't we using this? Like the science is already there. It's been around for over a decade. Psychologists are using it. It works. Why aren't we using this? And there's some hurdles there. And of course, I'm happy to talk about where I've taken it today. But that's how I got to where I'm at. I still do medicine full time. And then I have a passion project that I've started on the side.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know, and I've talked to you several times throughout your journey, and you mentioned this frustration of seeing teenagers who are suffering and having depressive symptoms, suicidal ideation, and this just you're feeling so I haven't heard you use this word that I remember, but helpless, that you've got 15 minutes with them and they're probably coming in with their parents, maybe not, but just this really helpless feeling of not being able to work with them in the way that you want. Maybe prescribe a medication, maybe not. We all know that there are so few resources for mental health these days. I imagine it's compounded in a rural area where you live. And so just really wanting to give these kids the support that they need. Yeah. And so I love that you took this challenge, and instead of kind of letting it drag you down into the dumps, you decided to do something about it. And I think
Yeah.
that's so inspiring. And, I think a lot of us kind of get in this feeling of like, oh, this is such a big problem. How, it's hopeless and we're never going to be able to fix it. And we might not be able to like completely fix teenage mental health. Um, but at the same time, I just think about the impact that you've had on your patients and these kids. And so it's so inspiring to me. I remember talking to you about it, sitting here in my office talking to you about it years ago, and just like, this is incredible. This is really something amazing. And so, yeah, let's hear all about it.
Could you imagine if all of us doctors actually put into work a passion project? Like we would change the face of medicine,
Right,
not be bogged down by insurance, not be bogged down by our bosses, not be bogged down by the amount of hours we're working, but each one of us has a solution. We all have it. We all have ideas.
right.
How neat would it be to create an environment where we all get together and we just like do it? Like, let me help you. How can I help you? And I think that's where I think Peter Kim does a great job. It's just like especially with me, it's like, Lindsay, who can I connect you with?
Yes.
And Vikram Raya, he's just amazing. Like, who do you need to meet next? And I think, man, if we could do that for all physicians,
I
mind blowing.
know. Well,
Yeah,
we can, right? I mean,
sure.
I think you and I come from a lot of the same mentality of how do we empower each other. And,
Yeah.
we've mentioned Peter Kim a couple times, and he's phenomenal as a great person, good friend, good mentor, very good connector, and also just incredibly motivational
Hmm.
to, I know for you, for myself, for so many other physicians, whether or not you and I've had an opportunity to be in his mastermind and work with him closely, but I know he's had a lot of touch points and just really had an impact on so many other physicians and their families as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, if we could have that conversation too about the power of masterminds. But yeah, again, I think it's just this testament to you and your persistence that you are like, this is and I know you've had some barriers along the way. I remember talking to you about some of those, and yet here you are. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you've got the headset in the background. And I was a tester once, and I didn't want to take it off, so it was incredible. So okay, so tell us, what is immersive medical therapy?
Sure. Immersive medical therapy is combining virtual reality with medical advice. And so I essentially help these children get into a state of mind where they're more receptive to the advice that I'm about to give. When a child comes in, and it may be the first time that they've actually admitted to a grown adult or a professional that they are severely depressed and they meet the criteria for depression, but also usually they have suicidal thoughts or ideation or a plan or a previous attempt. And, that's being disclosed. It's all out there now. So when I was in the office, I didn't want to just let them out of my sight. I'm 6 to 8 weeks out, and I can't. It is not appropriate for me to say I'll see you again in 6 to 8 weeks. Getting them in with counseling in my area is not fast, and psychiatry takes 3 to 6 months. And so, they're in my care for the time being, and I wanted to develop a course essentially where I could tell these kids what I wanted to tell them without having to use my time. And so the course is designed over 8 lessons where I meet with them and put them in virtual reality. And we can talk about the science behind virtual reality, because that's actually a huge part of why it's so cool that a doctor is designing a program. I'm not going to do something that's just woo or sounds good. Like, I'm actually finding literature to support the science of what we're doing. And so, we talk about behavioral activation and physiologic change and flow state and cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, all of those things in the science part of it. But when I put them in the virtual reality headset, my goal ultimately in lay terms is to calm their brain. And that works because a lot of the chatter in the monkey brain is in the frontal cortex, but that's also where that visual stimuli is. And so, when I get them into the headset, they're overwhelmed with visualization that everything else calms down. And then when I get them out of the headset, I can say, hey, and so lesson one is actually what is depression? I want them to know that 1 in 5 children have depression. It's very common, that they're not alone, and that this is a phase, and I'm here to help them through this. And so just, lesson one is just getting them familiar with the headset, but also just getting them to really understand that, hey, this is what it is. We understand it better than you think, and it can be a phase, and I want to get them better. And usually when I end the session, they're like, when's my next one? And I mean, what kid is excited to come to the doctor? Like,
Right.
you never hear that. But because VR is fun, it's also effective. And I love that about it. So then in like phase two, we kind of go to the basics, like, why did you get in this state? And we touch on a few things like, are you getting enough sleep? How is your nutrition? What is your social influence? Are you safe? And so, we're just touching on a few things that are super important, but then also in VR, I get them exercising. So we focus on movement as medicine. And these kids are cool. Like they're like, I never knew exercise could be so fun. Or, wow, I actually feel calm when I exercise. Or there's people that take it to a whole new level. They're dancing to Pink and they're just going to town. And, they leave my office feeling better. And it's a little unusual. A lot of times, if I wasn't using VR, I didn't, they weren't excited to come back, and they certainly didn't feel better per se. They might feel a relief, but not like, wow. So it's a combination of using science with modern technology, but then also educating them and giving them tools that they need to get better. Right now, the biggest program I work on is teen depression. That program's done, it's available. And the next one I'm working on is eating disorders and then depression for adults. And so, it can be used in so many different ways. My company is Immersive Medical Therapy. So my goal is to make it kind of an umbrella where we can meet different needs. But of course, my passion is working with the children.
That is
So,
so cool. And I just love what you said about kids that are excited to come back and do the next one.
yeah,
Like, yeah, what teenager wants to come to the doctor and talk about their depression with a grown up,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said you're meeting them where they are. And I mean, I didn't grow up with cell phones and we had video games, of course, which I didn't wasn't really into, but our teens are so accustomed to screens and screen time, and that's a whole other issue. But instead of really looking at that and saying, well, screen time might be a contributor to teen depression, it's like, no, these kids are this is what really stimulates them, and this is what they listen to. Like you said, this is what brings them into the safe space. And so really just kind of capturing that and capitalizing on the fact that they're going to want to do this, and
Mhm.
this is something that they are going to find exciting, and and
Mhm.
and then getting them moving too, because a lot of teens don't tend to move. They're unless they're in sports, at least that's my experience, or something that gets them active. And I think that is so amazing. And I'm curious, what are the results that you've seen in your practice and in the building of the company?
Sure, sure. My actual numbers are on my website and my app, but um, I would just say 100% of the kids say they got a lot out of the program. 100% of the kids said they enjoyed it and that they would recommend it to others. Um, when we look at the PHQ-9 scores, there is an 80 plus percent improvement. Um, there, there was kind of a mix. There was a child that she was working with a counselor while we were doing the program, and her scores didn't necessarily improve. They didn't get worse, but when you ask her feedback on the program, she was like, I enjoyed the program. I could get my thoughts to change. I I developed coping strategies. One of the things we work with in one of the lessons is coping with anxiety and using the box breathing method.
Hmm.
And so, that's just where you inhale over 4, you hold over 4, you exhale over 4, you hold over 4. And we bring in a military dude to teach the kids this, and he talks about how the Navy SEALs use this in the military. And so the kids actually get a lot out of that. And she used it. She was like, I got in a fight with my mom and I was doing box breathing and I didn't yell at her as much. So yes, the PHQ scores are improving, but also the techniques they're learning are applicable for the rest of their life, and the GAD scores. So what's very fascinating is I wanted to hit on anxiety as well because it's a comorbid condition, and we see improvement in anxiety almost after the first 2 lessons in everybody. So that's really exciting.
That I just like wherever do we hear 100% in any sort of research or
I know.
trials or anything
I
like
know.
that? Like
Oh,
that's amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. And to see those improvements, and for our listeners who aren't medical, the PHQ-9 is a measure of depression, stands for Patient Health Questionnaire, and then the GAD is a measure of anxiety. So just to for the background there. And that example that you gave, I think about how so many of us, even if we don't have any clinical mood disorder, when we get negative thoughts, we get, well, at least for me, and I hear this a lot of my clients and colleagues that we get stuck and we start to ruminate. And that's where a lot of the anxiety and some of the cognitive behavioral therapy can come in.
Yeah.
And unless there's something that kind of breaks it and helps us to see, okay, these are my thoughts and they're not real. And is there a different thought that might help me? Then we get stuck in that same cycle, and it's very easy to spiral. And I think it can be more magnified in adolescents because their frontal lobes are not as developed. And there's such a sense of, I'm the only one going through this. I know, at least I have a teenager, and I know in that generation, I'm so just inspired by the conversations that they're having. And I feel like mental health is less of a stigma in her generation, and they're more open
Yeah.
about it, which I think is fantastic. At the same time, the coping skills might not be as well developed as in adults. And I mean, a lot of adults still don't have that great coping skills. And even those adults that do can still fall back into those patterns. And so to have a tool that will sit down with you, and the first thing you say is you're not alone. This is really common, really just opens up that conversation. And then to help them to see that there are tools that they can use to to break it, like the box breathing. I woke up in the middle of the night last night and I did some box breathing to help calm my nervous system so I could go back to sleep. So and it sounds like there's some humor in there too with this Navy SEAL to to give a little bit of levity and just some joy in the
Yeah. I
exercise.
try to use a variety so they're not just hearing from me. And I think,
Yeah.
that touches, it's like some kids love it, some kids like it, some kids are like, that wasn't my favorite. And all of that is okay.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is, I feel like, they might not need something now, but these figures are impressionable. And so when they need it, they're like, oh, you remember when I learned that?
Yeah.
So
So they
yeah.
remember it because, again, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but just what's what I'm hearing is, since you're bringing them into a state of safety in their nervous system, they're going to remember it.
Yeah.
And rather than a place of fear, they're feeling safe and calm, and their
Yeah.
fight or flight is tamped down. And so that was one of the things you said first, is how do I put these kids in a safe space so that they can hear me?
Mhm.
It sounds like a lot of your experience was that maybe you tried some other things before this where the kids just weren't feeling safe, and so they weren't able to really take in what you were what you were saying and the guidance and counsel that you were giving them.
Yeah, yeah. And there was a study, and this was published in the American Academy of Family Medicine or Family Physicians, where they talked about the child's relationship with their physician is the positive predictor of an outcome. And so, um, man, when I heard that, I was like, I don't need a counselor. What I need is for them to keep coming back so I can be the influence that they need.
Yeah.
And then when they get into counseling, I can let go a little bit, you know? So at first it was very like, oh my gosh, I need air. I got to find counselors. And then we're not available. And then it was COVID, so they weren't meeting people. And then, insurance is a barrier. And for me, sometimes these kids can't drive and they got to go 30 miles. So, um, yeah, I mean, as a physician, we know so much and we're so equipped. We don't know it all, but I love that saying, where it's like they are just one child in our life, but at that time in their life, we are one influencer. We are maybe the one person that they truly do need, the healthy relationship and role model that they need. Like we are their world in that moment because they have suicidal thoughts. They don't know if they're safe at home or, that relationship they just got out of is just making them feel like the world is done. And so if we're that breath of fresh air for them, um, we need to keep them in our care. And I was going back to that statistic where just, we still have significant influence over our children that are in our office as patients. Um, when I read that article, that was empowering to me that I can do this. I should do this, and not just VR. I'm just talking about keeping these children, treating these children, even though I'm not specialized in psych, even though I'm not specialized as a pediatrician, even though I'm not a counselor, like, this can start here, and then I can build the resources as they come. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've worked with a lot of psychiatrists and folks to help develop this too. And I think that's something that I hear from physicians a lot is, well, I'm only a pediatrician, so I can't do this, or I'm only a whatever. I'm just that little part of me dies every time I hear that. Like, you're a doctor. That's a big deal. And so the fact that you didn't let that stop you, you didn't let that hold you back. And I know you've hit a few bumps in the road, and yet you persisted. So
yeah.
share a little bit with our listeners about what helped you get past those challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it just had to do with me not doing something like this before. It feels very foreign to my nervous system. So why me, But what gets me out of that is when I just go back to my why, the child that I'm treating, and I'll keep her name secret for HIPAA, but she was a 14-year-old with suicidal ideation that didn't share this with anybody. And her mom was one of my friends in high school. And, her mom looked me in the eye and said, we're a good family. Like, how did this happen to my little girl? Like, what do I do? And I need your help. And so when I developed this program, I developed it for her and I used it with her. And like, I could cry because she would say things like, Lindsay, this is the first time that my thoughts have actually stopped. All those negative feelings stopped chasing me. And I'm like, wow, okay, what I was reading was actually real and VR does work and what I have to say matters. So, okay, I'll just keep going. And so, we would spend time, usually on the weekends, doing these lessons together, and it was impactful. I've seen it work. And I know in my heart it works. And so, therefore, even though the funding isn't there or um, there's a little bit of a resistance in the medical field. So counselors have been using VR in their clinic for over 10 years. 10 years, but yet there's resistance in the medical field. But yet the AMA has a CPT code, so you can bill for it. So why aren't we using it? So, it's just like these little nooks that I'm punching down. And I've been invited to speak at the AOA, which is pretty cool. So they have their annual conference in September. and it's going to be the virtual reality of medicine. And so my goal is, just to bring awareness to people, but also we have a lot of resources out there that are already being used and they're only getting better and stronger. So that's exciting. Um, as far as other hurdles, I still work full time. I still mom full time. Um, so finding the time to do this can be challenging. If anybody is a physician working on your passion project, like just keep going. Finding, even if it's a half hour every day or an hour every day, I wake up extra early just to do this stuff. The passion of it overflows into the rest of my life. I am a better physician because I also do something I really enjoy. Or I am a better mom because I'm actually not just doing the monotonous day-to-day grind, but I'm actually like giving myself fuel to the soul that allows me to be a light to the world. I mean, it just like these little things that go on in my head, and I don't know, maybe I'm repaving my neural pathways. But the idea of these hurdles to me seem like they're supposed to be there, and it's my job to figure out how to conquer them. And so it's taking me longer, it's taken more money, it's taken me a stronger mindset. I don't think those are by accident, right? Like most people give up. Most businesses fail in the first year. Well, I made it my first year. So, um, and the other thing is I'm still making impact. And so I'm just gonna keep going. That's what I believe. So hopefully that helps somebody.
Oh my gosh, so much gold in there. And I'm getting teary too, hearing, your story about your patient and that she's your why. And when you've had challenges or the doubters, and I know you've had a lot of those, you just remember her and you say, I know this works. This works. And it's saving lives. And so I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to let this uh, veer me off track. And what you said about those are there for a reason. Those stumbles and those roadblocks are there for a reason. And they're all to really just kind of reinforce for you that this is your path. And I think that, yeah, a lot of times we see these challenges as like, well, this is a sign that I shouldn't be doing this, right?
Mhm.
And to you, it's like, okay, this is a sign that I need to double down. I need to make sure more people know about this, and I need to shout it from more rooftops.
Yeah.
And that is just so inspiring for me and so inspiring for our audience and what you said about rewiring your nervous system. Yeah, you really are. Because every time that you see a challenge and push past it and go back to your why, that you're bringing your own nervous system back into safety. You're doing for yourself what you're doing for your patients and
Yeah.
showing them that, yeah, it's okay. And this is my path. And what you said about being a better mom and a better physician as a result of this passion project. I hear that a lot of times too from other physicians and my clients that, well, I can't do this because it's going to take time away from my kids. And you've brought your girls into this. I know you've shared with me some of the conversations that you've had with them and you've showed it to them and so
They use a VR headset almost better than I do. It's so fun.
yeah, so you're
They're
not, it's
intuitive.
not like the separation of my passion project, oh, and then spend time with my kids. Like you've brought them into the mix. And so they get to see what mom does and get to be excited right there along with you.
Yeah, yeah. And when it gets difficult, I go into my team, right? So like in March, I always go to Cedar Sinai's Virtual Reality and Medicine Conference, and I had a list, and I was fully ready to say, do I keep going or not? Like these are real barriers. And my team pulled together and pretty much said, don't stop. You need to talk to this person. You need to meet up with this person. You need to change your headset from MetaQuest to Pico. You need to, meet with this lawyer. You need to, consider this FDA path instead of that FDA path. I've met with the FDA. I'm working with IRB research. I have a lot of uh, people around me that are cheering me on in ways that I never thought I would need or look for, but because I just keep going, it's like the opportunities, they just kind of lock into place. And I think it makes the project stronger. Um, it's I feel like I'm doing it on my own, but really I'm not because I couldn't do this alone, you
Mhm.
know? So it's yeah, I hope that resonates with somebody that's trying to do something because don't give up. Like it's
Yeah.
about who you know. And if you have your passion and you know it makes a difference, just keep going.
Yeah. I hear that too. It's like, well, I don't know how to do X, Y, or Z. Like, well, you didn't know how to do a central line 20 years ago, but you've learned,
Yeah.
you figured it out.
Yeah.
And somebody
Yeah.
showed you the path.
Yeah.
So somebody can show you this path. Yeah. It's so exciting and I'm just so happy for you. And you've inspired me over the years in so many ways. So thank you for that and for um yeah, for being that for me. Tell us, so you mentioned the app, so I want to hear more about the app and then where people can find you. Congrats on the speaking at AOA. That's incredible. I can't wait to hear how that goes. So you'll definitely have to let me know. But yeah, tell us about the app, tell us where people can find you and some advice for our listeners.
Sure, sure. So if you have an Android or an Apple, you can download my app on Immersive Medical Therapy. Um, the logo, let's see. I don't know, can you guys see that? That's the logo.
Yeah, on YouTube we can we can see it a little bit. We might want to have to drop it in there for our podcast listeners. So
There you go. There's the logo. So when you search for immersive medical therapy, you just pull that up. It's my website too is immersivemedicaltherapy.com. You can email me at immersivemedicaltherapy at gmail.com. Um, as far as contacting me, of course, I have my business cell phone number available. Somebody can reach me that way. So I'm happy to talk to whoever has questions or needs inspiration. If you want to look at using the product for your patients or for kids, um, yeah, yeah.
thank you so much. So wonderful to
Thanks
talk to
for having
you.
me.
Yeah, I've
Thanks for-
yes, like I said, it's just been incredible to watch your journey and just see everything that you've pushed through and like I said, really inspiring for me. And so thank you.
You've always been an inspiration and a rock for me too.
Thank
Someday I'm going to write a book just like you.
thanks so much for being here, Lindsay.
Thanks, Laura. Bye bye.
While I am a physician, the information presented in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult with your own healthcare provider before making any significant changes to your lifestyle or routine. By listening to this podcast, you are not creating a physician patient relationship. Thank you for listening to the Purposeful MD podcast. If you like what you hear, please rate and review the show. Please also visit my website, www.thepurposefulmd.com, for free downloads or to discuss working with me as your coach.